This AI can make anyone do or say anything. You can easily transfer the movements of one character onto a new character. Plus, you can also easily replace anyone in a video with someone else. The awesome thing is this is completely free and open source. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to download and run this offline so you can use it for unlimited times. And don't worry, I'm not going to show you how to use this mess. We're going to use a much simpler interface. Let's jump right in. So Alibaba recently released Wan Animate. This allows you to upload a photo of any character and use any reference video to control the motion of that character. So here are some of their official demos, and as you can see, not only can it control the overall movement of the character, but it can also accurately transfer facial expressions and also hands and fingers and other gestures. So with this tool, now anyone can just act out any scene from their basement and apply that to any character in any scene. And by the way, this is not the only feature that WanAnimate has. You can also take an existing video and replace any character in that video. So here's an example of that.
Rick Sorkin? Excuse me, Mr. Sorkin, you are 5 minutes late. Is there a reason why I should let you in?
Look, I'm just trying to ditch the cops, okay? I don't really care if you let me in or not.
Mr. Spector will be right with you.
What?
Can I get you anything? A coffee or just a bottle of water?
Here are some additional examples showing how good WanAnimate is at transferring not only just the overall body movement, but also hand gestures and fingers, and also facial expressions.
He's never had an original idea in his life. His only successful films were adaptations.
And this doesn't have to be just humans. You can also use other characters with different proportions, and it can still transfer the movement very well. This also works with Disney Pixar characters, as you can see here.
The melting permafrost is just releasing gases, and then these gases is just increasing the warmth of the planet.
As well as anime characters. Here's another example of how you can easily replace anyone in an existing video.
不是，这是华卓斯基家的格言。我爸告诉我的，刚好在这座湖还有这艘船上。
Notice that it's able to match the lighting and the white balance seamlessly. And this is also great for dancing videos. And notice here that it's also able to transfer the camera movements over to the new generation. So you don't have to use a video with a still camera. The camera can also move around, and this can be passed on to your new video. Now, if you compare this with other similar tools, it's not even close. WanAnimate is by far the most accurate and consistent and best quality. Also notice Runway Act 2, which is down here. This is paid and closed source, and it sucks so much. I mean, I don't know why anyone would still pay for a Runway subscription, now that we have much better video generators and editors out there. But anyways, here's another example, and again, WanAnimate is the best. Anyways, enough demos, let's go over where and how to use it. Now, if you don't have a nice GPU, you can always use WanAnimate online. So it's just wan.video. I'll link to this page in the description below. This is basically Alibaba Wan's native platform, and you can sign up for a free account, and you do get free credits to start, plus you can check in every day to earn even more daily credits. Anyways, at the top left here is where you can click generate and start generating videos. So down here, to use WanAnimate, simply click on avatar, and then down here you can either choose character swap, where you can upload a reference video and then an image of a character, and it will basically replace the character in the video with the new character. Or instead of character swap, you can also choose photo animate, and this is where you can upload an image of a character plus a reference control video, and it would basically apply the movements of that video onto your new character. Notice that one generation for both this photo animate option or character swap costs 20 credits, but you do get like free credits to make a handful of generations every day. Now, in addition to this online interface, of course, the awesome thing about this is it's free and open source, so you can download this and run it offline for unlimited times for free. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you right now. Now, there are a ton of ways you can run WanAnimate on your computer. One of the most popular ways is using ComfyUI, which is like the interface for running open source image, video, and audio generators on your computer. And one of the most popular options for running Wan variants, including WanAnimate, is this ComfyUI Wan video wrapper by this goat called Kijai. And they were actually the first to create a workflow for WanAnimate. However, when I opened that workflow, it basically looks something like this, which looks pretty scary and not beginner friendly. So actually, I was waiting for a more simpler and user-friendly version. Now, just yesterday, at least at the time of this recording, the ComfyUI team also released their own native workflow for Wan 2.2 Animate. However, when I downloaded this workflow, it also looks something like this, which is equally as horrifying. So don't worry, we're not going to work with this mess. I have a much simpler option for you, which just looks like this, and it's really easy to install and get started. So this interface is called Wan2GP by another goat called deepfakes. And the awesome thing about this is this can also work with as low as 6 GB of VRAM for some models. Plus, it can also support older versions of GPUs like this. And if you scroll down here, notice that for the latest version of Wan2GP, they've added Wan Animate. Plus, they've also added some additional tools like Lucy Edit, which is basically a nano banana for videos. You can basically edit a video with just a text prompt. If you haven't heard of Lucy Edit, see this video for a full review and installation tutorial. And in addition to Lucy Edit, they've also released Qwen Edit Plus, which is an open source Nano Banana. Like, some of its generations are even better than Nano Banana. Again, if you want to learn more about this new Qwen image edit, definitely see this video for a full review and tutorial where I compare it head to head with Nano Banana and Seedream. But anyways, back to here, what we're going to do is install this latest version. So if you scroll down, here it contains all the instructions on how to install this. Now, you could go for this one-click installer using Pinocchio, but I like to do things manually because if I hit any error, then it's easier to troubleshoot. So at least for this video, I'm going to go over this step by step. Now first, you do need to have Git installed on your computer. If you don't, here's how to install Git. If you already have Git installed, feel free to skip to the next section. So all we got to do is download the latest release for whatever operating system you're using. So I'm using Windows, so I'm just going to click on download for Windows. I'm running 64-bit, so I'm going to click on this to download, and it's now downloading this exe file. So once that's completed, all we got to do is open that exe file and then follow the steps. So I'm going to click on next. I'm just going to go with the default install location, which is program files/git. So I'll click next for that. And then I'm just going to leave this at the default. And then I'm going to click next again and click next here. We're just going to use the default settings for all of these. There's a lot of settings that you need to go through, so I'm just going to click next for all of these. All right, and then it should go ahead and install all the files, so this might take a few minutes. Perfect, so now we have Git installed. All right, now assuming you do have Git installed already, next you need to go to where you want this installed. So let's say I want to install this on my desktop. Well, I'm gonna click on desktop, and then at the top here, I'm going to type in CMD to open up my command prompt within my desktop. And then afterwards, I'm just going to copy and paste this line to basically clone this Wan2GP repository on my computer. All right, afterwards, you should see that we have this new Wan2GP folder over here. So I'm just going to drag it out here. And then next, we need to change the directory to go into our Wan2GP folder, because right now we are still in desktop. So let's paste this line in here, and then note that now we are within this Wan2GP folder. And then next, we need to use Conda to create a virtual environment called Wan2GP, which is going to use Python 3.10.9. Now, you do need to have Conda installed for this to work. If you don't have that yet, here is how to install Conda. If you have it already, feel free to skip to the next section. And actually what I'm going to do is install Mini Conda. This is a minimalist version of Anaconda. If you install the full Anaconda, it installs a lot of packages and dependencies that you might not need. This just takes up more room on your computer, and of course the installation time is a bit longer. But with Mini Conda, it's just a bare bones package, and you can always install additional packages and dependencies afterwards. So I'm on this page, and you could download the latest version of Anaconda, which is for Python 3.13, but 3.13 tends to not work very well with the latest AI models. So you should go with like 3.12 or 3.11. So instead, I'm going to click on this link, repo.anaconda.com, and here you will find a list of different installers for different operating systems and Python versions. So for example, you could go with 3.12 or 3.11. So if you want to install 3.12, here is the Windows version. So you can install this, or this one, 3.11 for Windows, also works. All right, after downloading the exe, I'm going to open this up and it's going to launch this installer. So I'm going to click next and then agree, and then let's set this to all users. I'm going to go with the default destination folder, and then I'm going to check this as well, clear the package cache upon completion. This just gives you back some more disk space without affecting functionality. All right, once that's completed, let's click next, and then we are finished. Now we aren't done yet, so if you open up the command prompt and you type in conda -- version, you're still going to see that Conda is not recognized. This is because we haven't added Anaconda to our path yet. So let's exit out of this, and then to add it to our path, we simply search for this function, edit the system environment variables. We're going to click on this, and then click on environment variables, and then click on the one that says path, and then click edit. And here's where you add in the path of Anaconda. So it depends where you installed Anaconda. For me, I installed it in program data. So it's going to be in program data /mini Conda. And then if I double click on scripts, you can see that Conda is here. So this is the folder we want to paste in. So I'm going to right click on this and then copy as path. And then back in the environment variables window, I'm going to click new and then paste in the path here and then click OK and then OK and then OK again. Now, if you open up command prompt again and type in conda -- version, you should see that we are running 24.5.0. So this shows that we have successfully installed Anaconda. Alright, so assuming you do have Conda installed, I'm going to copy this line and then paste it in here. So right now, this is just going to create a virtual environment that is named Wan2GP. Now, the point of using a virtual environment is, like, think of it as a separate hard disk on your computer, which houses all the dependencies that are required for this tool only. And the point of creating a separate environment is so that it doesn't conflict with existing things you have on your computer. Anyways, let's press Y to proceed. And if all goes well, you should see this line with no error messages. After creating the virtual environment, the next step is we need to activate, or basically go into our virtual environment to download everything else. So to activate it, we just need to type conda activate and then the name of our virtual environment. Let me copy this line and then paste it in here. Now, if you see the name of your virtual environment in parentheses at the start of the line, then that signifies that you are now within your virtual environment. So the next step is to just copy these two lines to use pip to install all these packages and dependencies. So let's copy this and then paste it in here. There are a ton of large libraries or packages that it needs to install. For example, Torch is almost 3 gigabytes in size, so this is going to take a while depending on the speed of your internet. Yeah, so as you can see here, Torch 2.7 is like 3.3 gigabytes. Alright, after installing all the Torch stuff, you should have pasted this line in as well, so let's press enter. And this is basically going to install all the libraries and dependencies that are listed within this requirements.txt file. So notice that it's quite a long list. So again, it's going to take a while for this to install everything depending on the speed of your internet. All right, and then afterwards, you should see this line again with no error messages. So that signifies that you have successfully installed all these packages and dependencies. Now, if you've already installed Wan2GP before, you don't need to reinstall everything again. You just need to update it using a few simple commands. So basically you need to do these steps. So I'm going to click into my Wan2GP folder and at the top here type in cmd. And then we are simply going to type git pull to basically fetch the latest updates from the GitHub repo. And then afterwards we need to use pip to install the requirements. However, they did skip a step here, which is that you actually need to activate your virtual environment first. Otherwise, it's going to install the requirements outside of your virtual environment, which might break some things. So make sure you actually use Conda to activate Wan2GP first. So I'm going to paste this in here to activate the virtual environment, and then I'm going to use pip to install all of the requirements. And as you can see here, it's scanning for everything and installing any missing dependencies. All right, perfect. Now afterwards, that's pretty much it. Now let me exit this and show you how to start this from scratch the next day. So simply double click into your Wan2GB folder, and then at the top here, type in CMD to open this up in command prompt. And then we need to enter our virtual environment first. So let's use Conda to activate our virtual environment, which we named Wan2GP. And then afterwards, we can simply paste in this line to use Python to run this Python file, which will basically start up the interface. So let's paste this line in here. And the first time you run this, it might take a while. There's no like progress bar or anything, but just keep waiting until you see some URL pop up. Alright, afterwards you should see this URL, so simply hold Control and click on this link, which will open up this interface on your browser. And here is where you can choose the model to use. And of course, for this lesson, we are going to go with Wan 2.2, and yes, we are going to use Animate. Now, actually, before we continue with this step, it's actually best to first go to configuration, and then you can review all of these settings yourself. So there are various settings you can customize, but what I like to do first is click on performance, and then down here, make sure you select the appropriate profile that fits your hardware. So for example, if you have less than 10 gigabytes of VRAM, then I would go with this option. If you have 12 gigabytes, I would go with this. And then if you have 24 gigabytes, which is what I have, I would go for profile 3. And then for profile 1, this is if you have high RAM as well. So if you have at least 64 gigabytes of RAM and 24 gigabytes of VRAM, then you can go with this option. At least for me, I'm going to go with profile 3 and then click apply changes. And then afterwards, let's go back here to video generator. And at the top here is where you can select Wan 2.2 and then animate. Notice that you can also select Lucy Edit, which is what I went over in another video this week. This is where you can edit existing videos just with a text prompt. In addition to Lucy Edit, you can also use this interface to run Qwen Image Edit Plus, which is the latest version, and this is like a Nano Banana competitor. Again, I already did a full review video on that, so see this video to learn more. Anyways, back to here, of course, we are going to select Wan 2.2 and then animate. And then over here, you can select from two different options. The first option is where you would upload an image of a reference character and a reference video, and it would basically apply the movements of that video onto your new character. And then for the second option, it's basically going to keep everything from your reference video, but just change the character in the video. So I'm going to show you both options in a second, but let's select this one first. And then here is where you would upload your reference video. If you select this, you can also outpaint the reference video. In other words, you can expand the edges of the reference video further and kind of zoom out. And you can even select like which edge you want to zoom out. So you can select from the top, bottom, left, and right edges. I'm going to disable this because I don't need to zoom out. And then here is where we would upload the video mask, which basically defines what movements you want to clone from your reference video. I'll show you exactly how to do this in a second. Now, from the mask, you can even choose to either expand or shrink the mask area. And then here is where you would upload the image of your reference character. And then finally, here is where you would write your prompt specifying what you want to see in your output video. And then this is pretty self-explanatory. Here's the resolution. You can select up to 1080p. And then here is the aspect ratio. Here's the number of frames. So currently this is at 30 frames per second. So 81 frames divided by 30 seconds is roughly 2.7 seconds. Notice that you can stretch this all the way to 737 frames, which is roughly 25 seconds. And then here is the number of inference steps. This is basically how many, steps the AI model goes through before outputting your final video. In general, the more steps you have, the higher quality your video will be, but at a certain point, you're going to get diminishing returns. And of course, the more steps you have, the longer it will take to generate. Conversely, if you set this to a lower value, it's going to generate faster, but at the sacrifice of some quality. And then if you click on advanced mode, there are several other options which you can play around with. One is CFG, which is basically how literally the AI should follow the prompt which you specify up here. So a higher CFG value would follow your prompt really literally, whereas a lower CFG value would introduce more creativity or variance in your generation. Here is where you would select the algorithm used to generate the video. Usually I just leave this at the default. And then here is where you can also choose to add LoRa's to this. Now, Wan has a ton of LoRa's, or basically fine-tuned models, which you can add on top of your generation for specific purposes. So for example, if somehow you want to morph a person into a demonic lord, well, you can use this LoRa. Or you can also turn a character invisible with this LoRa. Now, Wan is the most uncensored video model out there, so there's also a ton of uncensored LoRa's which you can choose from for any action or position or fetish you can think of. And then here's another really useful feature which I sometimes like to use. So in this step skipping section, this basically allows you to accelerate your generation further using two different methods. One is called Tcache, another is called Megcache. If you select Tcache, for example, this can also speed up your generation by up to 2.5 times at the sacrifice of some quality. Anyways, let's turn off this advanced mode, and that's pretty much it. Next, let me show you an example and also show you what to do with this video mask. Now, it turns out that they have another tab up here that helps you create this video mask. So let's click on this, and for example, for my reference video, which I want to clone the motion of, let me drag and drop this video. Let me play this for you first.
You know, I should change. Why should I change? I'm never even gonna find out who I am. You want me to change?
So it's pretty complex scene with different hand movements and expressions. Next, let's click on load video to load this video up. And then afterwards, here is where we can click on anywhere to automatically apply a mask over what we want to select. So for example, if you only want to select the tie, you can click on this area and it would automatically select the tie. Now, we want to select the entire person, so let's click on another area, let's say over here, and it should automatically add to our mask and select the entire thing. Now, this feature is especially useful if you have a video with multiple characters in the scene and you only want to, for example, replace a specific character in the scene. Well, you would use this method to click on that character only. Anyways, once you're satisfied with your mask, simply click on Generate Video Matting. And then down here, it's going to start generating our video mask. All right, and here's what we get. Let me play this for you. So that's what the video mask looks like. It's basically a segment of this person. The awesome thing is this is really convenient. You can just click on this, export to control video input and video mask input, and if I click on this, notice that it automatically transfers both the input video and the mask video to this WanAnimate tab. Alright, next I'm just going to upload a photo of my reference character, so I'm gonna select this one, and then for the prompt I'm just gonna write, "She is talking at the beach." And then up here, let's click generate. Now, the first time you run this, notice that it needs to first download the WanAnimate model. And this is almost 18 gigabytes in size. And then it proceeds to download some additional files. So for example, this VIT huge is over 2 gigabytes in size. It also needs this text encoder, which is almost 7 gigabytes in size. All of these files are required in order to run WanAnimate. All right, and here is what we get. In fact, let me play both videos for you at once.
You know, I should change. Why should I change? I'm never even gonna find out who I am. You want me to change?
Alright, so that's how you would use this first option. Next, let's also go over how to use this one where we would replace a character from a scene. So let me get rid of all these input videos and images. And again, instead of uploading videos here, we can just go over to the video mask creator to first upload our reference video. So I'm gonna upload this video and then click load video. And then let's select this dude to segment this person. And then let's click on generate video matting. All right, here is our masked video, Alright, so again, we just need to click this button to send our original video and the mask video over to this tab. Now note that in this example, we are selecting replace person, so it's actually going to keep the background of this video and only replace this person with our input character. So let me drag and drop this image of a woman, and then for the prompt, we can just put she is talking. Now, because this is 4 seconds, let's also set this to 4 seconds down here, which is roughly 120 frames. And that's pretty much it. Let's click generate. All right, and here's what we get. In fact, let me try to play both videos at the same time.
Might be thinking, well, let's just give up. Why don't we just let
And there you go. So that is how you can use WanAnimate with a really simple user interface, and you don't have to deal with this ComfyUI mess. And you can also use this with low VRAM. And that sums up my review and installation tutorial of WanAnimate. Let me know in the comments what you think of this, and also if you run into any errors during the installation, welcome to copy and paste the error message in the comments below, and I'll try to help you troubleshoot as much as possible. As always, I will be on the lookout for the top AI news and tools to share with you. So if you enjoyed this video, remember to like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content. Also, there's just so much happening in the world of AI every week. I can't possibly cover everything on my YouTube channel, so to really stay up to date with all that's going on in AI, be sure to subscribe to my free weekly newsletter. The link to that will be in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.